So, what constitutes our food supply? What constitutes the definition of food? For me, food is something that gives us physical, mental, and emotional sustenance. For me, food means the chemistry of our body is matched in kind or superseded by the intake of what we call food. So, my own quest in this lifetime is to pull up my vibrational energies to the point where I am constantly radiating and I'm constantly functioning at the highest electrical charges and the highest degree of vibration that I possibly can. When we're sick, we drop, our vibrational energies drop, and we drop all of the electrical charges in our body to a lower charge. So we are electrical factories. Most people are not even conscious or aware of that. So why am I talking about this today? Because I am seeing so many people that I know personally, that I care about tremendously, who are ill, sick, and feel as if they need and must take certain choices that are not satisfactory to them, but because they're told that that's their only source of healing. And usually it doesn't say healing, it usually says cure. I don't believe in cures, I believe in healing. Healing is from the source. Cure is trying to suppress a symptom. That's how I see it. And that's what I have witnessed. So why is this important? Let's look at the history of food first, shall we? So I'm not even going back to prehistoric times or when we were in the savannas. I'm looking at the history of food manufacturing. When did food stop becoming something that grew in the land, that we took straight from nature, and that matched our own vibrational energies? And that is important to me because food is actually sprouts out of the earth according to the season. So obviously our bodies need sustenance that matches the soil, the temperature, the climate, so that we can then adjust to that soil, temperature, and climate. We live with viruses all the time. They are everywhere. They are all over. Our bodies know how to handle them if given the right tools. And if we match our vibrational energy to the point where health and wellness thrives, it knows how to handle things without we even knowing that we came in touch with any of these other living matters. We are mainly, most of us, all of us actually, are mainly bacteria. Our bodies have more bacteria than we have cells. So to look at all bacteria and condemn it and try to run away from it is forgetting who we really are and what our bodies really need. So the soil is what's critically important. But it's not something that you will see a lot of in films, in song, or hear a lot of in songs, in poetry, or in movies. So unfortunately, that information is suppressed and we don't even think much of it. I was very privileged to work with a farmer who taught me about soil, where I could touch it, feel it, I could actually become it, I could see that it became me. And I watched a movie called The Living Soil. It's a Japanese, and this was at a Japanese wellness center that was developed by Mokichi Okado in Japan and is now all over the world. But I want to look at the first, how we got to the stage where we are now with food, and why I'm at the stage where I feel a need to ask this question. So the food manufacturing subsector consists of 4 industry groups. First, this is not what I am telling you or what I think. This is what, if you look at all of the literature, this is what it says, that these are the food manufacturing subsectors. The one that's usually on top, that usually put on top, is animal food manufacturing. Not food for animals, because you don't need to manufacture food for animals. When they're out in the wild, they eat whatever is available seasonally, locally, right in their area, and they thrive. It's when we bring them and we domesticate them and we bring them into our homes and into zoos and circuses that they become sick, because then we start feeding them manufactured foods. But another thing was happening with animals. We now put them on what we call farms, and we totally put them into constraints. They're no longer roaming free and wild, and they're no longer drinking from the streams that they know has the healthy, clean water. They're no longer able to express their own emotional state by movement, by being with each other, by communication with each other. So as a result, they've become very sick. They're usually very toxic. And not only that, they are also no longer functioning at the high vibration level. So then we kill them, and then we eat all the terror and all of the secretions that are naturally, the body naturally gives off when someone is in pain or is being terrorized or being slaughtered. And we end up eating that and drinking that. And that goes into our cells, and it becomes part of us. Is it any wonder we live in so much fear? If we're eating fear, the fear of the animals that have been enslaved this way and being tortured and being slaughtered, that's what we're eating as well, is that energy. And it's no wonder we have so many emotional and mental diseases and illnesses. Another subsector is the grain and oil seed milling. So some grain would grow wild, really wild. But then what we did was we decided to hybridize them, and we decided to, again, confine them to only certain areas rather than just they growing wild wherever they need to and wherever nature takes them. And we confine them, and we do not rotate the soil, and we do not make sure that the soil is healthy and clean. And so we end up having these substandard grains, except for maybe teff, to some degree millet, and maybe quinoa, but I think that's changing too. And also there's a problem with quinoa in Peru, but I won't go into that right now, with the fact that we are taking away so much of the quinoa crop from Peru and the problems that it's having on the local communities, but I will not go into that right now, just mentioning it. And then oilseed, we started taking the seeds, and we started taking vegetables, and we started producing oils from them. And then we started getting all these illnesses and diseases. Some of them we call gluten intolerance, but it's not an intolerance. Our bodies just don't know how to process that. It was never made for that. These things are not made for the human body. And then the third one would be sugar and confectionery product manufacturing. So then we have sugar because we need sugar in our bodies. We all do. But instead of taking it, all plants, and especially fruits, have a tremendous amount of natural sugars that the body knows what to do with it. It actually thrives on it if it's given just the pure, clean sugar in the form in which it arises in nature. But what we do is we pound it, we manufacture it, and we bleach it, and we change its innate structure, and then we put it back into things which are not sweet to sweeten it, so that we will then develop a craving for it, and we will eat it, and then we develop all kinds of illnesses, and the one that most people know is diabetes, which is not really illness, it's just a repercussion. We need to stop calling them illnesses and just call them repercussions. I have a repercussion from sugar. I have a repercussion from grains that have been polluted and destroyed from their natural sources. I have pollution from eating animals that have been raised in hellish conditions and have given off all these tremendous fear hormones, of which I'm eating right now. And then the last one is the vegetable preserving and specialty food manufacturing. If you look it up, you will see all these 4 categories. Now, it's interesting because vegetables grew wild. In fact, you can actually find people who will teach you and take you to wild foraging and teach you what is edible and what is not. And there used to be that fruit trees would grow wild, and there's still some countries that are. When I was in Argentina, I remember we went outside to a town north of Buenos Aires, and there were fruit trees growing on the sidewalk. That was the most delightful thing to me. Places that were groves have actually been thrashed down. Concrete has been put in their place, and shopping malls have come up. So it's very interesting what we're doing. So I'm asking the question today, how did this happen? When did this start? Well, the food industry underwent its biggest transformation in its history during the 20th century. So if you were born during the 20th century or after, what you're eating is most likely not real food. It's what has been manufactured since as food. And then we got a new industry that grew up. It's called food distribution. And this was what was used to grow or manufacture food, I should say, on a massive scale, because it could be distributed faster. And they found that these distributors started looking for faster and more convenient ways to produce their products. Products, not food, but this has now become products, as if nature could not do it by itself at its own pace, because nature does things at a different pace, and it is actually needed to produce it in this space because it depends on the sun, the stars, the moon, the animals, the insects, the bees, the butterflies, the birds, the climate patterns, the weather patterns. So it's all dependent on that, but that was not good enough for us in the 20th century. We needed to get faster, more convenient. And so these distributors were looking for ways to create standardization. That's what it led to. If you could standardize it, if you could have great concentrations of it in one place, automation and simplification. I don't know how we can simplify nature anymore, but anyway, this seemed to be the key to their success. They could grow more, distribute more, and make more money. But should money be made off of our food supply? That's the question that each and every person needs to ask him or herself. Are you okay that food, or what is meant to be food, is now become a profit industry, a for-profit industry? And that's the underlying decisions that are made, is how much profit somebody can make off of it. The fact that we're so sick in so many different ways, I think it's time for us to start looking at the food supply and manufacturing system and look at our ancestors and how well they were. They could ride for miles, run for miles. You know, there was a time when to get from point A to point B was far away, we would swim to get there after walking over hill and dale, after hiking constantly. Now we have to find time to go hiking, and it's supposed to be a fun experience only. It's interesting that we now have to create hobbies like swimming, when this used to be the natural way of transporting ourselves from place to place. It's interesting that we're now buying treadmills, machines to put in our home to walk, when we used to transport ourselves from one point to the other by walking. We have become manufactured. We, human beings, are now being manufactured. Are you okay with this? This is part of a series I'm starting on these elegantly raw tidbits, so please comment below, give me your suggestions, your ideas, your questions as well, and click the subscribe and the notification buttons for more. Look forward to seeing you for more of these. Thank you for tuning in today.